The Mandalorians and the Sith have a long-standing history of friendship between them. Because of this, we often see Sith gaining the support of the Mandalorians anytime a larger war between them and the Jedi breaks out. And as we know, the entire Mandalorian Jedi War was manufactured by Vitiate. The Sith openly admit to having kindred spirits with the Mandalorian Crusaders, who believe in honor and glory through battle. But the thousand-year silent alliance between the two of them began with a fierce battle between the Mandalorians and the Sith. Or should we say, a ferocious duel between Mandalore the Indomitable and the Sith Lord, Ulic Qel-Droma. In today's holocron, we are once again winding back the clock to the year 3996 BBY, and breaking down the entire fight between the reigning Mandalore and the Dark Lord of the Sith. So now, let us open the holocron. Our story today comes from Tales of the Jedi Dark Lords of the Sith number 6. Our story begins approximately 6 months after the noble Jedi Knight Ulic Qel-Droma was turned to the dark side and joined his former friend Exar Kun as a Dark Lord. The two, with their ancient Sith amulets, accidentally summoned the spirit of Marka Ragnos, who informed them that they were now the heirs to the Sith. Marka Ragnos bestowed upon them the title of Sith Lord and commanded them to bring back the Golden Age of the Empire. Now we go into Tales of the Jedi, the Sith War number 1. To this end, Exar Kun was going to do his work on the Jedi homeworld of Ossus, deceiving the masses with lies about the dark side and gaining many followers from the Jedi Order. Meanwhile, it was Ulic that was holding down the Sith-owned worlds of Empress Tita, which was comprised of 7 central planets. But what Ulic was dealing with was undesirable interference. The Mandalorian Crusaders, under the leadership of Mandalore the Indomitable, had been leading raids on several of the Sith worlds. The advanced technology of the Mandalorians had been absolutely crushing the antique weapons of the Empress Tita system. What confounded Ulic, though, was that the Mandalore hadn't even made any demands upon him, but he was bent on conquest. Finally, the Sith Lord had had enough and established a connection with the Mandalorian leader himself. Once the Sith Lord and Mandalore were finally in contact, Mandalore revealed that he knew very well who Ulic was. Having heard of him through his Jedi exploits on Onderon, Mandalore had been specifically raiding the Empress Tita system to get the attention of Ulic, as he desired to battle him one-on-one. Mandalore proposed that since the planets were weak and unable to defend themselves, that Ulic should act as their champion, to meet Mandalore on the battlefield in single combats to the death. The stakes were that if Mandalore won, he would get the 7 planets called the 7 Tita Jewels. Ulic agreed to this, but he said that if he won, the Mandalorians would serve him forever. The two men would rendezvous on Mandalore's homeworld of Kuar in the open plains of Harkul. By this point, Ulic Qel-Droma was extremely confident, not only in his skills as a fighter, but also his powers in the dark side. At this point in history, we can place Ulic as the second finest duelist in the entire galaxy. Ulic was the only person to actually stalemate Exar Kun. In fact, in all of his comic appearances, Ulic Qel-Droma never loses a lightsaber duel, not once. The only time he didn't finish one was when he was willing to put his weapon down. But the fact is that based on his feats in the lore, and the fact that at this point in the story Ulic has been gorging himself on the dark side for half a year, we can comfortably put him at Nightfall Anakin level. I kid you not, Ulic Qel-Droma was that good. All of that is to say, though, that Ulic had good reason to be confident, and because of this, he allowed Mandalore the Indomitable to establish all of the terms of their fight. Mandalore would take full advantage of this, and heavily unbalance the fight in his favor. He knew that Ulic was strong in the Force, so Mandalore's weapon of choice was known as a war mount, also known as the Basilisk War Droid. These things were staples of the ancient Mandalorian Crusades, and were basically giant semi-sentient droid mounts which had an animal-life self-awareness, and were bound to their rider. Basilisk war droids were armed with an array of weaponry in and on their armored frame, including blasters and pulse wave cannons, shockwave generator rods, and shatter missile launchers. The Mandalorians were known for riding Basilisk war droids down into the atmosphere of a world from space at tremendous speeds, utilizing the gravitational force and the element of surprise to overwhelm their enemies. The subject of the Basilisk war droids is very extensive and won't be covered in this holocron in entirety, but if you would like a full breakdown on the ancient Mandalorians' greatest weaponry, be sure to let us know if that's something you'd be interested in. Anyway, while Mandalore was allowed to have his war mount, Ulic was also not permitted to even stand on solid ground. The battle is taking place in a valley between 2 broken towers. Ulic was forced to fight standing on a web of large chains suspended from the ground and hung between those 2 towers. But as big as these odds were, The Force is the great equalizer, and Ulick was able to maintain his balance perfectly on the chains. The beginning of the fight was not seen in the comic, unfortunately, but when we enter, the duel has already commenced. Mandalore the Indomitable swoops down on his war droid, unleashing a barrage of blaster fire at the Sith Lord. Ulick weaves the blade of his archaic lightsaber to deflect, but under the heavy fire, some of the shots make it through Ulick's defenses, and even glance his armor. During the battle run, Mandalore then fires a large forward cannon. Ulick leaps over the shot, which destroys the chain link that he had been standing on. As the Dark Lord somersaults through the air over Mandalore, he brings down his lightsaber mid-flip and destroys the engines of the droid with one blow. The war beast is sent careening down into the ground, as Mandalore quickly jumps off. Both combatants land on the same chain, and Ulick decides to wait for his opponent's next move. The Indomitable accuses Ulick of fighting unfairly due to the nature of a lightsaber, calling it a bloodthirsty weapon. He then insists that Ulick fight with the traditional Mandalorian war axe, the weapon of the Mandalorian forefathers. And insanely, still confident, Ulick Qel-Droma extinguishes his lightsaber willingly, declaring that he can defeat Mandalore regardless of any weapon in play. The duel resumes again. Mandalore takes a Ming swing at Ulick, and he barely dodges. And although we've been pumping up Ulick, Mandalore was no slouch. He brings his axe around and strikes Ulick in the jaw, breaking apart his facial armor and knocking him off of the suspended chain. Ulick free falls in the air, but lands on the war mount of a hapless Mandalorian who happened to drift too close to the battle. Ulick relieves the Mandalorian of both his war axe and his mount. And although above him Mandalore claims that the day is his, Ulick charges him, and with one thundering blow, the Sith Lord smashes his axe against Mandalore's with such force that it sends him falling to the ground, disarming the great Indomitable one of his weapon. The Mandalorian leader was defeated, and Ulick stood over him, triumphant. The defeated warrior remarked that it was a glorious combat, and he succeeds. Mandalore tells Ulick that the warriors are his, and to kill him. But instead, the Dark Lord states that he has no interest in the Mandalorian's death, but has a much better fate for him in mind. From that point forward, Mandalore the Indomitable served as the Sith Lord's general for the remainder of the Great Sith War. What we see of this duel is unfortunately brief, but it establishes an important relationship moving forward in the story. What is a little disappointing is how the Mandalorians act during this fight. Despite being a warrior of honor, he puts Ulick at a massive disadvantage by literally using heavy artillery, while also denying him any solid ground. The moment Ulick actually does take down the war beast, Mandalore accuses him of foul play simply because he used his lightsaber. What's more, is that he also technically attacks an unarmed opponent, as when Ulick puts his lightsaber away, Mandalore attacked the Sith Lord without giving him a replacement weapon. Ulick had to take the weapon from another Mandalorian, and literally as soon as he did, the duel was over, as he used it to utterly annihilate Mandalore. But despite the fact that he fought dishonorably, Mandalore the Indomitable seems to learn from his mistakes, and acknowledges Ulick as an honorable warrior, and promises to serve him faithfully until the day that he dies. In fact, later on, Ulick's own lover, Alima Kita, would betray him during a battle of Coruscant by telling Mandalore that he had attacked and then failed, and ultimately to retreat. Ulick ended up getting captured by the Jedi since he was left all alone in the heart of the city. This made Mandalore extremely upset that their attack had failed, as it had made complete sense to him. His honor and the honor of the Mandalorian people deserved to know why their plan did not succeed. When he discovered Alima's treachery, he took it straight to Exar Kun, who organized Ulick's rescue. When this occurred, even Ulick Qel-Droma was surprised by the depth of Mandalore's loyalty to him, as Mandalore was true to his word. But anyway, friends, that was the ferocious battle between the Mandalorians and the Sith, one which spawned their long-lasting friendship, and an alliance that would plague the Jedi for centuries. I actually do wish this duel was much longer, but of course it came from an older comic that didn't flesh out the fight very much at all. Again, these comics were even made before it was established that all Sith Lords used red lightsabers, which is why individuals like Exar Kun and Ulick Qel-Droma have blue lightsabers. That's how old this comic is. We absolutely hope and pray to get a remake of the Ulick Qel-Droma epic, and hopefully they can redo these Tales of the Jedi comics, as the story here is genuine gold. Anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on the expertise of Ulick Qel-Droma and his great fight with Mandalore the Indomitable? As always, may the Force be with you, and I hope you're having an amazing day.